sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was.
Yes, I can't screen share it because it's not on this device.
Well, Bethany, why don't you just read it to us then?
It was actually, it was a recording of a Navajo prayer, and it was by one of the Navajo elders. And so I don't have the words because it was all in the Navajo language. So I'm sorry. Maybe we can have it later.
That sounds great to me. Valerie.
Yeah, we're gonna get ready to get started. We're gonna open up with a prayer, where everyone let's meditate for just 1 minute. Our Father in heaven, we do thank you for this glorious day. You have blessed us to be in it. This is the day that you have blessed us to be in, and we will never see this day again. So we are asking for your very presence in our life at this time, at this moment. You are welcome in this just beyond, Lord God. And bless us with peace, bless us with understanding, bless us with respect for one another. We be careful to give you all the glory and give you all the praise. In mighty Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So now I want to introduce everyone to our moderator, Miss CC. Take it over, Miss CC.
I have a Navajo prayer that I can read aloud to us.
Okay, thank
Slightly
you.
different, okay?
Okay.
So this is eagles are very, very important to most native tribes, being a very strong and powerful and brave bird. So this poem is called the Eagle Poem. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you, that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in a moment, steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle, that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky and wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born, and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. This is by Joy Hario.
Thank you, Miss Brooke. We really appreciate that. Miss CC.
Yes. Well, welcome everyone to Justice and Beyond. I want to thank the candidates for coming. This is a very important race. We hope that we can learn a lot about the candidates and what they stand for. I want to thank Justice and Beyond for inviting me to moderate this forum. I know Justice Beyond is a multicultural, multi-generational coalition of a variety of different groups who've come together to see that justice is served on various issues. So I'm very proud to be here. So we'll begin by introducing the candidates, and after I introduce the candidates, I will say in which order you will speak. And so we have 4 of the many candidates that are running for this position. We'll start with Ms. Sarita Steib. We have Mr. Zan John, Dr. Vinnie Mendoza, and Gary Chambers Jr. So having that beautiful prayer that was just read and acknowledging First Nation Day, I'd like to open up with something that would be very, very pertinent to their concerns as well as our own concerns. So I will ask that question, but we're going to start with Mr. John, and then we're going to go in the order in which you guys came onto the forum. Mr. John,
Yes.
Ms. Stibe, Dr. Mendoza, and Mr. Chambers. And so please take a moment to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what your day job is, and why you're running. Ms. Stibe.
I'm sorry, I'm starting on Mr. Johns.
The ladies first thing got me that moment, but Mr. John, you go first.
Hey, wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Zan John. And to start this off, I'm running because I want the answer to a couple questions. First off, I'll just do three for the sake of time. I want to know who Ray Epps is. I want to know what a woman is. And also, I want to, did anyone see the fact that the Florida Surgeon General released a warning about the COVID-19 shots, warning against them?
Okay, we won't be answering those questions, but we would like to, I'd like to ask you then, tell us about yourself, what's your day job and why are you running?
Well, yeah, okay. I'm running because I am the only person that is actually going above and beyond to speak the truth, even though I am being censored all over. I'm on my 4th YouTube channel, and I'm a sommelier, and I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. And if you ask anything else specific, I'll happily answer.
Thank you very much. Did you say, oh, you said why you were running. Okay, Ms. Stibe.
Hey, CC, thank you all for having me. My name is Sarita Stibe. I am from Vacherie, Louisiana. I currently reside in Jefferson Parish and Metairie. My job during the day, I don't like to term it as a job, it's my passion. I am a executive director and founder of Operation Restoration. It's based here in New Orleans, and it focuses on currently and formerly incarcerated women and girls and helping them to transition into society after incarceration. That is my life's work. And I am running because I'm the only candidate in the race currently who has experience from day one that can execute policy. I am responsible for writing and advocating and passing over 17 pieces of legislation nationwide. And I take this personally. And I get up every day and I fight to liberate people. And I would love to continue to do that as the next U.S. Senator representing the state of Louisiana.
Thank you, Ms. Stibe. Let's have Dr. Mendoza.
Hi, I'm Dr. Denny Mendoza. I'm an organic farmer currently doing some research with collaborating with LSU about immunosuppressive medicinal herbs. I'm retired from the Air Force. Also was an adjunct professor of business administration with Central Texas College, the Far East campus. And I'm concerned about the economy. And, this week, a couple of days ago, the CEO from JP Morgan said that we headed into a recession, and we basically been there. But the major concern is that we actually headed into a depression because now the OPEC and Russia are in the process of manipulating the gas prices. Then everything is going to go up. Gasoline is going to go up again. Food is going to go up again, and we need to set up a system so we can take away the power that big oil companies have. They created inflation here in the last 6 months. They manipulated the gas prices. They stopped production, and we need to stop that. So
All right. Okay, Dr. Mendoza, thank you. We understand you're very concerned about the economy, and that is a major, major issue. So we appreciate your input on that. Mr. Chambers.
Good evening to you all with Justice and Beyond. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all this evening. My name is Gary Chambers. I am a North Baton Rouge native. a small business owner. I own a consulting business here in Baton Rouge. I am Zoe's daddy, which is, I think, my most important title and my favorite title, and an advocate that has helped to open an ER in North Baton Rouge, helped to keep a zoo there with hundreds of millions of dollars in investment, as well as had numerous policies at the local level change to make Baton Rouge a stronger community. Ran for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District last year, came up 1,500 votes short of making it to the runoff. I am the lead polling Democrat in this race. John Kennedy is polling at 51%, which means that we can get him into a runoff with 29 days left. I'm here to talk to you about how we mobilize people all over this state to get the job done. And I'm the only Democrat that gives you a pathway to victory in December if we get to a runoff.
Mr. Chambers, please tell us why you chose to run for this position then.
I chose to run for this position because our U.S. senators are more of a con artist than a senator. Our state ranks 50th in the nation. We rank number 48 in healthcare, 48 in education, 46 in healthcare, 47 in opportunity, 50 in crime, and 48 in the economy. I think we rank 50 in crime because we rank number 47. If you ask me what my priorities are, those are my priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Well said. And I wanted to ask, are there any candidates that came on since we began? We're not clear about that. If there are, then please open your mic and let us know. Anyone else?
I'm here. I came on after I was having trouble getting the link. All right. My name is Salvador Rodriguez. I am a Chicago native, but I grew up here in Tangipahoa Parish from the 70s. I am running for this office because I'm tired of the Republican quagmire and stalling. I'm not trying to do anything for the working people. I am tired of all of the Republican tricks that are only out to serve themselves, not the people they're supposed to represent. And that's why I'm running. I have a staunch passion for doing that because it affects me too. As a person, as a member of society in Louisiana, it affects me too. And that's, I don't like to have the Republican establishment talk down to me like I don't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So,
okay.
Any direct questions, I will answer those too.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the questions in a moment. I just want to ask one more time, are there any other candidates? Okay, well, no one's answering. And if there are, then you need to put something in the chat box, and Valerie's going to be monitoring the chat box if any other candidates come on. But having said that, let's start with, we'll start with the first question. As I was saying earlier, since we are honoring our Native American brethren, let's start with a question about the situation with climate change and the fact that we have fossil fuel companies here. What are you willing to do to help Louisiana become a leader in green energy in terms of reducing our dependence on fossil fuels? We'll start with Ms. Stott.
Thank you. We know that Louisiana is not just sportsman's paradise and people travel here from New Orleans. We know that a lot of people across this state are completely dependent on the oil and gas industry in order to take care of themselves and their families. I really believe that Louisiana has to move into a dual energy economy. We have to begin to look at ways that we can become leaders in other energy producing fields. As someone who grew up in the river parishes, I'm from St. James Parish, as I mentioned before, and I am currently endorsed by Sharon Levine, who founded Rise St. James, as well as I have a mom who's very involved in the Dinka litigation in St. John Parish as it relates to Cancer Alley. I also know the effects that the bad actors can have in the community when they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing or being held accountable. So I think we have a lot of oil and gas industry that are here in the state that show up in the way that they show up. They support the schools in the system. They regulate the emissions of petroleum in the way that they should. And a lot of these communities across the state are dependent upon them, not just for revenue, but also to take care of industries that are in their communities, specifically in the rural areas. How long do we have to answer the question, Cece? I think that would
I'm
be
sorry, I should have said, you have at least a minute to answer questions.
okay.
Okay, and I think your minute's up, so let's go some.
I didn't know if we had 1 minute or two, so I was watching the clock, but 1 minute, got it. But
1
just
minute,
wanted to
please.
say that we have to move into a dual energy economy.
Great. Okay, Mr. John, same question.
Yeah, so in the 60s, this whole concept of climate change was actually brought up by the Club of Rome to be some sort of catastrophe to control people. And also Mr. Henry Kissinger is one of the authors of that. And if you'll remember, in the 70s, the big threat was global cooling. In the 90s, it was global warming, and now it's just climate change. So this is all a hoax, and it's designed to bring in a social credit score. It's designed to make humans bad and stop the burning of carbon, which has freed us from a life of backbreaking work. So I will continue to push for drilling and us being self-sufficient with our energy.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Mendoza.
As I said earlier, the big oil companies are the ones that created the inflation and the recession, and they manipulating the production and the prices of gas. So my primary goal as the next senator is to cap the prices that they can high they can increase the prices, and also take away that power from them. Take away the power of manipulating the prices and the power of stopping production whenever they feel like it. And what I want to do is to also force them to invest 50% of the earnings. In the last 6 months, they made billions of dollars, and I want to invest that into new energy.
Thank you very much. Let me move on to Mr. Chambers. How to turn Louisiana into a green economy? How would you do it?
So number one, I don't take money from oil and gas because I think in order for you to have the ability to hold oil and gas accountable, you can't be in their pockets. Number two, I support the Green New Deal. I think that we need policies that are revolutionary to help us fight climate change. Climate change is not a hoax. We have hurricanes at a rapid rate right now. Florida just dealt with a massive hurricane. Louisiana has had 2 Category 4 hurricanes in the last 2 years. People have gone with their power out, and all types of despair. And we need people in office that understand that the way Louisiana goes forward is to have an energy resilience plan, but also to go after the jobs of the future. Oil and gas is eventually going to die. That's just what's going to happen. The question is, does our economy die when the oil and gas industry dies, because we have not diversified our economy? And so we need to go about.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Mr. Rodriguez. Same question.
Unmute. Yes, same question. Okay, first, I would like to say that we need to definitely curtail our use of oil and gas and go with green energy projects like wind and solar to lessen our dependency on oil and gas, either foreign or domestic, because climate change is real. And we have had more snowstorms and violent hurricanes in the last 15 to 20 years than well, specifically snowstorms before the last 15 to 20 years than we had in the previous 120 years. So it is real. Louisiana is a subtropical climate, and that's just unacceptable. Besides the fact that oil and gas had billion-dollar profits, and everybody else has got to pay the piper for them to do their business, and it's not fair. So I would invest in green energy jobs and training to get us out of oil and gas's gratitude and indebtitude to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Let's go to the next question. We will start this question off with, who we're going to start with. Let's start with Dr. Mendoza, and then following him in this order, it'll be Dr. Mendoza, it'll be Mr. Rodriguez, it'll be Mr. John, it'll be Mr. Chambers, and it'll be Ms. Stives. You guys got to remember that, because I won't. But in that order. So the next question is piggybacking off of becoming a green economy and a green energy leader. How would you address the homeowners insurance crises we are now facing, with insurers having fled the state, refusing to write policies, and Louisiana citizens now seeking a 63% premium increase? What with our weather and the hurricanes, we don't, it's very expensive to have flood insurance. And I grant you, we just saw what happened in Florida. A lot of those people do not have flood insurance. And so what should we do?
9 of those major insurance companies have gone bankrupt, and we need to be able to cap what they can charge. The same way that we do it with flood insurance. 10, 15 different insurance companies can sell you insurance, but it's the same price. So we need to do the same thing. And also, the governor went to Europe, to England, to Lloyd's Bank to try to negotiate insurance prices, but we can do it here. The government can set up a fund. They can governate the insurance problem that we have, but we need to be able to cap it so they can work for everybody. Right now, it's going 30, 60, and 100%. So we need to cap it.
Okay, next. Who is next? Mr. Rodriguez, was it not you?
Yes, it is. Oh, I'm still unmuted. Okay. Now, the question is, how do we do that from the flood insurance is this, they're taking advantage of this. We've known about the potential for this adverse weather since the 70s. They were saying, Al Gore has been saying it for years, that climate change is real, and now we're viewing the effects. But I think the insurance companies are taking advantage of that, because now that we're in these desperate times from massive hurricanes and natural disasters, they just can't afford it. So now they're going to jack up the prices and take advantage of the situation so that they can increase their profits just so they can stay afloat. But we definitely, like I said on the first part of the question, was switch to green energy so that we can address this climate change within the next 12 years, like it was said on CNN and other channels and networks, that it is real, and we can kind of lessen the climate change by going to green energy and getting out of oil and gas. But the main problem is that a lot of senators and people, elected officials, are in the pockets of the oil and gas lobby. And that's just got to stop. We got to start with Citizens United. That needs to be repealed as well. Thank you.
Mr. John.
All right, so I just put in the chat Obama's house in Nantucket, which is 1 foot above sea level. So if climate change is real, they're obviously not worried. Address is right there.
Mr. Chambers.
I think there were 2 questions asked, one about affordable housing and one about flood insurance. Am I correct?
Oh, no, we're talking specifically about the flood insurance and the problems when we do have natural disasters like the hurricanes that are becoming increasingly bad.
So one, I think we need to cut the red tape that people have to go through when storms are happening, and how they have to deal with the SBA if people need a loan, if people need assistance of any form. That's a hassle for a lot of people, especially people who are low income or people who don't have clear access to their titles on their properties. we've got to figure out how do we eliminate a lot of those loopholes. The other thing is natural disasters are going to keep happening. And so the federal government needs to ensure that we're making people whole. Ms. Stibe talks often about her experience with the last storm. I think that we've got to make sure that people don't have this deficit between when a disaster happens and when they're made whole, because people can't return back to normal in their homes. They can't get back to normal with work, and it slows up the economy at the end of the day. So we've got to figure out how we make it, cut the red tape.
Okay, Ms. Stiles.
Yeah, thank you. As Mr. Chambers mentioned, I'm someone who is currently going through insurance issues with the last hurricane and not receiving any homeowners insurance payments for the major damages that I had to my home. And had I not been financially able to address it, I still would not be in my home right now as we speak. I think that, as Mr. Chambers mentions, we definitely have to figure out a way to hold these companies responsible. But the one thing that I begin to find out is that certain insurance companies write in certain areas because they can offer certain rates, but there isn't any guarantee that these companies that come in and write in the Gulf Coast region can pay out these claims. That is why the fund was created statewide, because those insurance policies are managed there. So there has to be some type of insurance from the federal government that if an insurance agency is able to write a statewide policy, that they have to be able to make good on their claims. They can't just come in and offer these lower prices and make it affordable and price out companies that have longstanding reputations and that actually make good on their policies because they're cheaper. And then when it comes time to pay out, they go under. So I think that that is how the federal government gets involved, is making sure that people that are able to write these policies actually have to make good on the policies. And if they don't, they can't run to another state and write more policies to continue to benefit and get paid.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question. In what ways will you work to codify the landmark 1973 Roe versus Wade decisions that legalized abortion nationwide? Do you support a woman's right to choose and body autonomy, or oppose it? Let's start with Mr. John.
Yeah, so I'm happy that they finally repealed that bad law, because the Roe v. Wade baby is actually alive today, and they lied to the court about all that, and she regrets being used as the linchpin in that whole deal. Also, is anyone here aware of what Planned Parenthood does with all the aborted fetuses? It's a huge industry. They sell all the body parts to China, put them in cosmetics, and a lot of the people who perform these abortions, these abortion doctors, are devout Satanists. Please look into it. It's a sick industry. And also, Bill Gates' father ran Planned Parenthood with Margaret Sanger, and they are all located in mainly Black population demographics. This country aborts babies for convenience.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Dr. Mendoza.
Well, I support the women's right to choose, and want to sponsor legislation that goes a step farther. Many women are abused by men. They're raped, and whether raped by the husbands or someone that they don't know. And I'm proposing the Lorena Bobbitt Pee-wee Act that would cut the penis of all the rapists. So, because many of them go to jail and then come out and then rape people again. So we need to stop that from the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Ms. Stibe.
So, sometimes the answers to the question changes what I think the question is. So is the question, how do we feel about the reversal of Roe versus Wade specifically?
Specifically, it is about that. And then how do you feel? Would you support it or oppose the idea of codifying Roe versus Wade as if you become the senator?
So absolutely, we have to codify Roe versus Wade. Very familiar with eugenics and how all of that started. But I think that even though I personally don't believe in abortion for myself and my family, I believe that I do not stand in right or judgment of anybody else that needs that service. The way to codify it is definitely to get rid of the filibuster, will definitely work in all avenues. But for me, the reversal of Roe versus Wade is the tip of the shoestring. I feel like everything else can unravel. You know, it concerns me about Griswold versus Connecticut. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has spelled out very methodically all of the things that he wants to roll back: marriage, equality, and a multitude of other things. So for me, Roe versus Wade, while it has to be codified and reversed, it also, we have to go to Washington and fight like hell to be able to protect all of the rights that are now going to be under attack because of this one decision.
Thank you, Ms. Stibe. Mr. Chambers.
I think it's real simple. One, as a man, I should never be in the decision between a woman and her doctor, or someone in their decision concerning reproductive rights. I believe that there should be a right to choose. I would vote to codify Roe v. Wade. I'd vote to end the filibuster to do so. Of the candidates who have a viable chance of making a runoff, my positions are clear on this. I'm unwavering. I will also be very attentive to what we do as it relates to appointing justices to the Supreme Court, because I think that we have had too many times where we've gone along with justices that gave us compromising answers in the process of their review before being approved by the Senate. I'm going to take that very serious as we look at what the court has done being radicalized.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, I am like Mr. Chambers. I stand with the woman's choice to do that. Although, like Ms. Stibe, I am not for it personally, but I am a good Christian, and I believe that while God doesn't make mistakes, we do as humans, and He forgives us for that. And I believe that's the whole overturning of Roe v. Wade was just a Republican thing to distract us from the fact that they're not doing anything to help people survive day-to-day life and make it an even playing field. They distract us with tactics that we shouldn't even be having this conversation. Because in '71, when the Roe v. Wade came around, the states had dropped the ball then, and they will continue to drop the ball about women's rights and make women, the government, that's a part of government intrusion that shouldn't be in place, because that should be between the woman, her doctor, and her God. And that's her decision. I can't make that for her, and I wouldn't try to. But as a senator, I will definitely codify that back into law of the land so that we don't have to have this discussion again, because Roe worked for almost 50 years. Thank you.
Valerie, this is Belinda. I'm keeping the time.
Well, good. Thanks, Belinda. Why don't you chime in when the minute is up, please? That would be very helpful. I'd appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna start with Mr. Rodriguez this time. We're gonna go counterclockwise. Mr. Rodriguez, the next question is, do you support a ban on assault weapons, or what should be done with the high crime we're experiencing, not just here, but all over the nation? And of course, New Orleans was recently declared the murder capital of the United States, but we have all types of weapons, specifically military assault weapons on our streets. What would you do about that?
Well, first of all, as a veteran, I've seen what the AR-15s, which are a civilian version of the M16, which is a known weapon of war. So yes, definitely ban that, high capacity magazines, and definitely go through a more stringent background checks for individuals, check whether they had the mental acuity or that they're not subject to snapping. They're not under any forms of duress or stress, or where they might take this gun and be able to get this gun or have mental ailments that would make it easier and more accessible for them to purchase a gun such as the AR-15 and just go out on a rampage, because their dog told them to. It's just, no, that's definitely got to go. Ban the assault weapons, because I've seen firsthand in the military what it does to the human body. And if you need any proof, I wish there were pictures available to show those kids in Uvalde, Texas, how it mangled their bodies with bullets. Thank you.
Mr. John.
It's totally fine. So what was the question again? The
The question is, do you support a ban on assault weapons? And
Oh, no, I
what would you do about the high crime rate we're experiencing across the nation? There, you know, all of these multiple shootings we're seeing, you know, what would you do as a
Okay,
senator?
So the first, yeah, so no, I don't support banning any sort of assault weapon, because that's why this country hasn't been invaded yet. The founding fathers already had this discussion in 1776, and it's clear this country needs them. Secondly, I have a report right here that goes into detail about all the counties that DAs are installed by George Soros, and he doesn't allow the rule of law. And our New Orleans DA, with a whole bunch of others, just like Tampa, they all have these radical Soros DAs installed, which will let a murderer out right after they've committed a crime. So we have to stop that.
Okay, Dr. Mendoza.
Well, I wouldn't support a ban on all weapons. I would support a specific ban on certain weapons. Any weapon that has more than magazines of 50 bullets, I would consider that. And regarding the crime rate, you know, we should talk about New Orleans and Louisiana, the crime in Louisiana. We don't need to worry about the United States. We are here. People are suffering in New Orleans. So I would take the mayor to Japan so she can see where the lowest crime rate is in the world and learn from them. They actually go into a community. They have police boxes every 5 or 10 blocks, and they get involved with the community. We need to mirror that and reduce the crime. But, you know, rather than wasting money and going to have fun in other Europe and other places, she needs to go to work in Japan, where she can learn something from the Japanese. Thank you.
Ms. Stibe.
So as a U.S. Navy veteran as well, I've seen firsthand what assault weapons can do. So definitely would ban and support a ban on assault rifles and weapons, because they're not needed in the streets. Definitely from a rural area, so really understand the importance. My whole family goes hunting. I think that there are ways that people can buy guns and have concealed weapons permits, going through the proper processes. I do not think that we have to go to extremes where guns are housed at police stations and people have to go in to check them out like a lot of the other countries. But if the focus is on banning guns and assault rifles, we also have to address the fact that most guns that end up on the street are not there in legal means either. And there are more things going on, not just the school assault shootings, but the crime that is happening with illegal weapons here in the streets. And as far as the crime rate in New Orleans is concerned, I am someone who works in social justice every single day of my life. And I am intimately aware that if you have, you know, as Mr. Chambers, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chambers.
So number one, I think that we gotta be realistic with ourselves. We have a state of 4 million people. We've sold 6 million guns since 2020, since 2000 in this state. We have more guns in Louisiana than we do people. I think that we could all say we support an assault weapons ban. I don't think that that is achievable today. I think what is achievable is sensible gun legislation reform, where we can change the age of acquiring an assault weapon. We can require certain background checks. We need to talk about mental health in our communities as it relates to weaponry, as it relates to crime. We've got a lot of crime issues because we've got mental health issues and a lack of resources to mental health issues. We've got a real drug problem in America right now, fentanyl overdoses. We have more deaths from fentanyl right now in Louisiana than we do from homicides, and we're not having conversations about that while our U.S. Senator talks about crackheads. We need resources and for communities, for young people, for after-school programs. That's something that U.S. senators can find resources for. And we've got to create opportunities and jobs in the state of Louisiana.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Belinda Parker Brown, I want to have you weigh in. Are there any questions? Ms. Brown is a freedom fighter. She's an advocate for justice. And actually she asked for this forum. And therefore, I would like to have her tell us a little bit about herself. And if there are any questions we want to ask our panel, our candidates, please do.
Well, thank you so very much, Valerie. And thanks to everyone that made this forum happen for us at such a busy time of the year. But, I want to say that to all the candidates, how much we really, really appreciate you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to participate in a very important, necessary forum to Justice and Beyond. You all know that we are a very active organization. We have engaged in so many forums and issues and throughout our entire state. Our focus have been mainly on a lot of our challenges there in New Orleans. So thank you so very much. I would want to say that keeping the time is very difficult. I don't like to cut people off in the middle of when they're talking and saying some very important things. But I do have a question for you. Louisiana, the whole world was watching us during Katrina, and we became the incarceration capital of the world. And also right now we're #1 in crime. I would like to, our city is #1 in crime. Forgive me for that. But I would like to know, with these challenges, how can we, what are your plans to change the perception of Louisiana?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chambers, then Ms. Stibe, then Dr. Mendoza, then Mr. John, and then Mr. Rodriguez. And then we'll go backwards for the next question. Ms.
So
Stibe.
I think that's a great
Mr.
question, Ms. Brown. I think that the real way we change our perception is, one, we don't have a U.S. Senator who spends his time on TV doing one-liners rather than talking about how we address the problems of our state. The other is I intend to sit down with every mayor in the state of Louisiana right after being sworn in, having conversations about how we build regional hubs in our state, and then going in a collective strategy for each region of the state. I think when we start pitching our state that way, we're going to get more people to invest in Northwest Louisiana, with Shreveport. We're going to get more folks to invest in Southwest Louisiana and Lake Charles, and we can get the rehabilitation necessary for those folks that have been recovering for a storm for 2 years now. I think you just got to have somebody who's actually going to go out there and talk about Louisiana in a sensible way. I've got a huge platform, and I intend to do it as a good ambassador for our state.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Chambers. I'm giving a little bit more time, so let's go to Sarita. Valerie, you can call off the names for me.
Ms.
Belinda, but Belinda, is Miss Cece the one, the moderator? I'm watching. That's all right. That's all right. All of us sisters, all of us are sisters. Miss Cece, did you hear what Miss Belinda wanted?
Absolutely.
And Valerie, I certainly appreciate you too, sweetheart. You're doing such a wonderful job. But go ahead, Cece.
Valerie is the glue.
Yes,
sure.
yes.
So I really appreciate all the work that she's done, and all the advocacy she's doing at RTA. So let's go to Ms. Stibe. Ms. Stibe, same question.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Belinda, for, requesting this forum. I appreciate the time we able to spend together today. What I was saying earlier, and just to tie it back in, is that something Mr. Chambers always mentions is the statistics. I think that the violence is directly tied to lack of education, lack of jobs, healthcare, poverty, all of these things really amplify the way that we see ourselves today. But I think it takes someone who's invested in narrative change and someone who has been involved to be able to talk. A lot of people know, and I don't know if everyone on this call knows, that I'm formerly incarcerated and spent almost 10 years in prison prior to getting out, graduating from college, and becoming the executive director of Operation Restoration and founding that organization. And what I find is that if you give people an opportunity, you have to be invested in them taking access of the opportunity and making sure that they're able to actually step into the opportunity. So I think it begins with narrative change, being invested in community, which is something that we already do, and making sure that every focus that we have is bringing this state forward together in all places. We can't just focus on New Orleans for tourism and don't care about it anywhere else. So I think for me, that would be how I would continue to let the rest of the world know that Louisiana has some of the best people in the world. And even though we incarcerate people at a rate higher than any other in the country, I think that is because we have a fascination with the for-profit mechanism for incarceration. So we have to remove the for-profit mechanism for incarceration, and we will definitely begin to see those numbers drop.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, CC, next candidate.
Yes, Dr. Mendoza.
Unfortunately, magic doesn't work to change perception. What we need to do is to change what we do and how we have been doing it for the last 20 years. So I have a specific plan that provides a better educational system where children from the first grade to the 12th grade, they have half-day academics and half-day vocational training so they can learn different types of trades. So by the time they reach the 12th grade and they graduate, they have a trade where they can get out and work for $20, $25 an hour or go to college. And that's how we change that perception, but it takes years to do that. I lived 9 years in Japan and I was teaching at Central Texas College there, business administration. And I learned from the Japanese how to do things better. And I want to apply that same process here. Right now, we have 9 out of 10 children go to school hungry. It's impossible for any child to learn anything because they have an empty stomach. Even you go to work and you don't eat, you'll be hungry, so you're not going to be able to concentrate. But most children are going to school hungry. So we can change that.
Thank you very much. Next candidate.
That would be Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. I understand this question, I think is correct. All right, first of all, it starts off with the educational system. We must change the education system so that they can catch these young children at an early age to keep them occupied and teach them trades so that they can use it in the future to address potential crime. But as far as revitalizing the image of New Orleans and the state, we definitely need to get these kids off the streets and put them into some kind of activity where they're not readily accessible to the bad influences of the neighborhoods or wherever they're at the moment. I am working with a woman that developed, a pilot program to teach kids the arts as well as some science programs and to get them motivated to do that. But it starts with early education, early childhood education to get these kids motivated, keep them motivated, and kind of curb their television and internet access to stuff that doesn't increase their productivity as individuals. And it lets them feed their mind with positive things that would influence them not to go down this road when they're supposed to go this way. So thank you.
Thank you. Before we're coming up on our Q&A and closing remarks. So I think we have one more candidate, CC.
Right, Mr. John.
Hey, yes, ma'am, you brought up Hurricane Katrina earlier, and that was a very devastating thing. I'd like to speak to that real quick. In 2005, General Honoreau did a unconstitutional gun grab to the residents of Orleans Parish, and also want to make a note that the Army Corps of Engineers decided to go ahead and bust the levees, which flooded and killed all those people. Thirdly, and final point is, if anyone is familiar with the government program called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, they are known to warm up oceanic waters to lead hurricanes in a certain direction. And people who have left and or escaped the program have talked about souping up tropical depressions to lead them to strike the Bible Belt by design because of the government's disdain for the South, federal government.
Thank you. Now, Belinda, I do have one very important question, one last question before we
Okay,
open
go
up.
right ahead. We still have about a good 5 minutes before we go into Q&A.
Okay, great. Well, the question is, it's about the Voting Rights Act. As we speak, the United States Supreme Court is looking at cases regarding the Voting Rights Act that would probably cede the federal power over federal elections to the state legislatures. We also have a problem with, still, I know in Florida, the people who were formerly incarcerated still are struggling to have the right to vote. So the question is, number one, what would you do in terms of making sure that votes are protected, but also would you work to allow people who are formerly incarcerated people get to vote the day they're released or the day after they're released? Because 5 years here in New Orleans is just, it's unconscionable. People have done their time, they should have their rights restored. So we're gonna start, we're gonna go counterclockwise, and we'll start with Mr. John.
That's a real good question, Valerie. CC, I'm sorry, that's a really good question. Okay, Mr. John.
Yes, so first off, we shouldn't be voting on iPads like that. I mean, that's just a problem in itself. And secondly, there was actually a movie made about accountability in voting, and it's called 2000 Mules by Dinesh D'Souza. And it goes into the geo-tracking of the people who were ballot harvesting's phones, and is a perfect case of how an election can be stolen.
Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez? Can you unmute?
You're on mute, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay.
My bad, my
There you
bad. All right. Could you repeat the question again real quickly? Because I got distracted by his answer and I was just thrown for a loop with the answer, but can you repeat that, please?
Absolutely, I can repeat it. What I said was that the United States Supreme Court will be deciding a voting rights case that would further destroy the Voting Rights Act and cede the federal power over elections to state legislatures. That's one issue. How do you plan to allow us to protect our vote so that we have a recourse? Because that lawsuit that's pending is saying basically, the state legislatures will control all elections, and we as the people, if we disagree, if they steal the votes, we cannot take that to any higher court. That's one thing. And with that, would you agree to allow formerly incarcerated people to get their vote as soon as they're released and not have to wait 5 years in the case of Orleans Parish and Louisiana, and then even longer in other states?
And CC, I would like to go along with that, is that we have people that are sitting in jails that have not been convicted. and they still don't have, access to vote. Is that also something that we can take a look at as well?
Okay, we're ready for my answer? All right.
Yes, sir.
Definitely, we need to, watch what the Republicans are doing, because they're trying to shift it down to the states, and where they're gerrymandered the whole state governments to actually benefit them, and their gerrymandering of districts and stuff of that nature. But we definitely need to go back to the, I believe it was Section 2 of the 65 Voting Rights Act, where they can't do stuff like that, such as gerrymandering and things of that nature. But we actually, we must all get as many people involved politically and to pay attention to what is going on, because it is not something that they're doing for the good of the people. They're doing it for their own good, and they're not concerned about everybody else. And that's what they're trying to do is with this Voting Rights Act. I think we should strengthen that, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and keep going to make sure that people like Clarence Thomas cannot systematically tear it apart. What's taken so long to get there, and keep us everything like it is now, so that everybody who's legally eligible to vote can vote without having to stand in line for 6 to 8 hours or 10 hours to cast their vote. And as far as the whole charging people with a crime for giving somebody water while standing in line to vote is absolutely ridiculous. So we need to stand up and make sure that the current elected officials hear our voices and understand that that's not how this forefathers designed this system. This is our system of government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Not for the rich, not for the corporations that put money in their pockets and their campaign coffers, but for the people that go to work every day and do their jobs and try to survive. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Mendoza.
First of all, we need
Voting
to,
rights.
yes, we need to make sure that we can send a Democrat to the U.S. Senate, a Democrat from Louisiana, so we can. The first thing I would do is pack the court. I would support to have 11 Supreme Court judges and have majority of women, 6 to 5. This will protect the Roe v. Wade, okay, and also will protect the Voting Act, okay, Voting Rights Act. And also, to me, if an ex-convict like Marion Barry in DC can run again after being in jail and win, become a mayor for a second time, of course, anybody has been in jail and served their sentence, they should be able to vote. So I do support that. And if a person hasn't been convicted yet, they should be able to vote as well, even if they're in jail. So, but the only way that we can accomplish all these things is by sending a Democrat to the U.S. Senate. So we need to get together and check everybody that is running, see who's got the best platform and who can do better. So we only have one chance. So we have basically 4 Democrats or 5 Democrats. We need to pick one. But check everybody and see what they have to offer.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Ms. Stibe.
So this is, a topic that's very near and dear to me. I wasn't able to vote for the first time until 3 years ago, and had been released from prison at home, working, paying taxes for 11 years prior to me being able to vote. There are many states that people do not lose their voting rights currently. They are able to vote while they're incarcerated. There are opportunities where we used to bring voting machines or absentee ballots into the local jail so that people could vote who weren't convicted, but there's no consistency. We need to make sure that this is mandated, and it is happening, because the law in Louisiana currently states that a person loses the right to vote once they're convicted. They can receive the right to vote back if they've been home 5 years or if they are no longer on probation or parole. So everybody who falls outside of that realm, we have a civic responsibility to make sure that these people can vote. My organization, we do a lot of voter education and registering to vote. And that is one of the things that we focus on, making sure that the people who are in the jail are able to utilize and exercise their right to vote. Secondly, I think with the Voters' Rights Act, definitely we have to work to get that passed and make sure that the act is passed and goes into effect. But the long-term thing is that we need to be looking at these foundational documents that allow exclusions as it exists, and how do we begin to strike the language out of those foundational documents so that we do not have to keep passing amendments and laws that give people the right to something that they should have a right to, that is their birthright. So for me, it's not just, we have to take it a step further and begin to strike the language out of these foundational documents that allow us to have to do all of these extra things in order to make sure that people who have a set of rights that are given to them as their birthright, and how we take those things away. So as the next U.S. Senator, that is my main focus, not only passing these things currently so that we can have access, but also how do we begin to strike the language out of these foundational documents.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The Chambers.
So under the guise of the question, I'd be the United States Senator, and I would call Ms. Sarita Steib to have a conversation about how we get the work done, because she is certainly a subject matter expert and has done meaningful work around helping us move this subject forward. I've had that conversation with Ms. Steib in a real way. I respect the work that she does. I believe that one of the things about a good U.S. Senator is you don't try to be the subject matter expert in everything, but you talk to the subject matter expert so that you can get good legislation and good policy. And that's the way that I intend to do the work, whether it is criminal justice reform or environmental justice. That's the type of leadership that I intend to have. I just have to say this though, Mr. John has said a lot of inflammatory things on this Zoom, and I would be not myself if I didn't say that we do not have to give conspiracy theorists a platform. This is how we had people storming the U.S. Capitol.
I cited everything in there.
This is how
YouTube links.
This is how we
website. Gary.
This is how we've had people storm the U.S. Capitol. This is how we got to the point that we are. And if we don't confront these things at every chance that they happen, we will continue to have a divided nation. And I'm not going to sit on this Zoom or any room and let conspiracy theorists spew that garbage out without confronting it. This is what's wrong with our democracy now.
Say that to my face.
Pull up on me, brother,
Excuse me,
anywhere,
excuse me.
anytime.
Order, Mr. Chambers, please. And Mr. John, please. We're not gonna have that let's not go there, because we have members waiting to ask questions of you guys. So everybody's entitled to their First Amendment rights. Okay, Belinda, you want to, either Valerie, want to open the floor for the members to ask questions? What are we doing?
Again, I just want to thank all of our candidates. This is a very important, we can't have someone interrupting. If you want, you will have a chance to, address whenever your mic is open and you're speaking. So please don't interrupt anyone else while they're speaking, wait your turn. That's very important. Just a minor housekeeping there. This is the most important time of our forum. We're ready for Q&A from our community that have joined us and taken the time out of their busy schedules as well. So we have a few, reactions down here. If you have a question, you can click on the reaction button, raise your hand. And I think we have Valerie that's looking for any raised hands, but make sure you specifically pinpoint your question to a candidate or to all the candidates. So, and keep your questions short and to the point, not comments right now. We only want to ask questions so that we can give each of our candidates the opportunity to respond. Okay, so thank you. We see some hands up, CC.
Okay, Miss Belinda, I got this right.
Valerie, okay,
Yeah,
Valerie, you
that's
got
all right.
this.
Yeah, Valerie's running it now. This is her wheelhouse for real.
Okay, all right, Valerie, go right ahead. Let's call on our community now. I see some hands raised.
Okay, right now I'm gonna go to the chat first. The chat was first. I have 4 important people that's had questions in the chat. When I call your name, you will have 1 minute. 1 minute to state your question, and we're gonna ask the candidates. You will have 1 minute to answer. And as always, we ask everyone to respect everyone. We will keep it calm and peaceful. Yes, we invited all the candidates. Everybody is important. The candidates on here on this forum, in this forum, is representing everybody in Louisiana. So we are asking you all to show us your best, because we want to vote for the best. We really appreciate you being here, and we thank you in advance for you showing respect for us all and for each other. Thank you so much. So we're gonna start in this order. But I will ask Miss CC, will you, when I call out the name of the person in the chat, will you let the candidates know how they will, in order how they will answer the question? We have Mr. Clement, then we have Miss Darlene, then we have Miss April, then we have Mr. Alexander. We will go in that order. Mr. Clement, Miss Darlene, Miss April, and Mr. Alexander. Thank you.
Well, I'm ready. This is Clem. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Should I address this to a particular candidate or just to say, I really would like Mr. Chambers to respond to this most of all.
That's fine.
And that is, you know, during Katrina, when we had this awful flooding in New Orleans because of an industrial canal industry that now anticipated to be again for industry. All of this was not paid for, or the recovery was on us and on taxpayers, not on the industry, not the Corps of Engineers, and yet they did all this extra work. It's showing up, I believe, in flood insurance. FEMA bailed us out, what little we did, and this is now
Time.
so I want to know what be done about this.
You were going in and out for part of it. So I heard what I think I heard most of it is that during Katrina or the aftermath, that the parties who were most responsible were not held accountable. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, yes, it is. Now it's
So I think, and I'm not sure if this has happened, if there have been congressional hearings about the response to Katrina or these storms and the flood relief. I think that's one way that we can have a conversation about this and exposing a lot of the issues that are there. Congressional hearings, Senate hearings give us the opportunity to unpack things from a lived experience. The other thing is, one of the things that I want to do is bring Senate committees to the state. Bobby Kennedy, when he was a U.S. Senator, brought U.S. Senators to the Mississippi Delta so that they could have a committee hearing in the district. I think that makes a difference to be able to have a conversation with people in those communities to actually move the needle on it. We know what the solutions are. How do we get people to vote for the things that we know need to be passed?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Next, we have Miss Darlene, then Miss April, and Mr. Alexander. And Mr. Ben, you're gonna be after Mr. Alexander.
Before they start, Valerie, let me say, I was looking in the chat box and some people are asking that you ask their questions. I think April was saying that she couldn't unmute something about her computer. So there are a couple of people down there that we will have to ask the
Exactly.
questions on their behalf. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Miss CC.
Okay, ready for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, please excuse my picture. It was a rest day and you really wouldn't want to see me right now. My question is for all of the candidates. Would you be in support of the Louisiana Supreme Court upholding the change in law that would end non-unanimous jury verdicts and review of all convictions from those non-unanimous jury verdicts?
Okay, let's start. Well, let's let Ms. Steib begin to answer the question. Is Ms. Steib still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there. Answer
Yes.
that, and then I'll go clockwise. So in order of how I'm looking at people's pictures.
Yes, so thank you for that question. That is something that we are currently supporting and working toward. Louisiana is the second state behind Florida that sends the most people to prison, innocent people to prison. And that is duly enforced and a direct result of the non-unanimous juries. And not only do we have non-unanimous juries for capital cases, we were the only state out of 50 who had that that still abided by that. And we know in the Louisiana Constitution, that was a direct result of the Jim Crow laws and how to negate the presence of Black people on juries. So I think that the Supreme Court has to uphold it. I would definitely do anything in my power to make sure that it happened. We had a window of time where we saw over the year where a lot of people were released and it was proven that they were innocent based on the law that just was voted to end the non-unanimous jury. So for me, that's an easy yes. It has to happen, it must happen. And Louisiana is the only outlier currently with that issue, and it has to be made retroactive because that's what's in question is the retroactivity of the law. It has to be retroactive because you can't say something is unconstitutional and then not rectify the unconstitutionality of everyone who had been affected by it before the law change.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you. Okay, Dr. Mendoza.
Yes, I will support the to sponge all the non-unanimous jury convictions in the last 40, 50 years. So I'll support it.
Mr. Chambers.
Everything Ms. Steib said is, I think, 100% the direction we should be going in. This was good legislation that was passed by the voters of the state. The Supreme Court should uphold it. Furthermore, I think that we need to go into a lot of the policies that have been mentioned about people having restorative rights in general after conviction and all of these things. We know that this is an unjust system that consistently works against folks that we have the capacity to do something about, so we should.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rodriguez.
Yes, I think I understand the nature of the ununanimous jury. I didn't know that they could do such a thing without having a majority vote of the jurors to in said cases, to just have one or two to say he's guilty and then the rest of them's voices are unheard of. I mean, ignored or invalidated. So yes, I would support overturning those convictions on that basis, but not. It would require also to be a retrial because that is a miscarriage of justice. And if the person is actually guilty, you don't want to set them free totally on that, because if they committed a serious felony and if there's a chance that they were just biased about them because of any given circumstances. But an ununanimous jury is not, it shouldn't be constitutional. I'm not sure exactly, but it should, they should be overturned and possibly retried unless there's specific evidence, of their innocence in that case. But I would go with that too, to overturn those convictions and set those people free. If there's evidence that came to light after the fact to prove that they were innocent and wrongly convicted, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John. Where's Mr. John? Oh, there you are.
No,
Okay.
I'm not. I don't know too much about this, so I don't want to make a comment. Let's get on to the next group of questions, please, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Valerie.
Thank you, candidates. Next week, I will ask this question for Miss April to all the candidates. Can someone ask this question for me? Okay, I'm unable to unmute her. She want to ask a question about the factories in Louisiana causing cancers. I was trying to find it. I saw it. Okay, here we go. What are your plans for factories that are causing alarm rate of cancer in Louisiana?
Okay, I'm gonna go counterclockwise. We'll start with Mr. John.
What about these areas with cancer, like Hackberry and Lake Charles? Wait, what about it? What's the exact call the question again?
The question is, go ahead, Valerie.
Okay, the question is by Miss April.
Yes.
What are your plans for the factories that causing alarming rate of cancers?
The facilities and plants that, well, I know that there's a lot of glyphosate production around the Mississippi River. I want to rid glyphosate entirely. It's extremely cancerous and destroys subsoils for years. I'd really like to look into completely eradicating Roundup and 2,4-D, the broadleaf killer. I think that's all Dow and DuPont, and they'll likely try and assassinate me if I did that, but I still do it anyway. I mean, look, this stuff has got to stop. It's what causes breast cancer and other cancers. It gets in foods and all this Roundup Ready, all these GMO plants that can handle it. We get cancer because of all this GMO stuff. So it's bad. It's bad news. I want to stop it.
Well, thank you, Mr. John. Ms. Stibe.
So yeah, I think that we have to hold the people responsible who are putting these carcinogenic and pollutants out into the air. DuPont Dinka is the person who is single-handedly responsible for the cancer rate in St. John Parish. And that is what the fight is about. And if you look across across the state as a whole, there are multiple DuPont Dinkas in every community along the river. The reason why St. John Parish is the major focal point right now is because 95% of the people there had developed some type of cancer over a period of time. So I think that while we're talking about how do you hold these plants accountable right now, if you're looking at the EPA has a certain standard that they are able to execute. And then they do not have the resources or the ability to be able to hold people accountable in the way that they should. So one of the first things that I would want to focus on is making sure that the EPA had the budget that they needed to go after these entities in our community, shut them down, hold them responsible. I do not think that if you have caused 95% of the people in a community to develop cancer, that you should still be operating. You shouldn't even have a chance to clean it up or fix it. So we have to talk about what are those stringent actions that we take in order to shut these places down. But the EPA has to have the budget to be able to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Stibe. Dr. Mendoza.
The direction I would take is to address all the shareholders for each of these companies, especially for Denka. I would actually address them in Japanese. I spent 9 years in Japan, and I think it's important. Japanese, they're proud people, and I would hold them accountable for the damage they caused here. Cancer Alley is not just cancer. People, children have all types of respiratory problems, and we need to hold them accountable. And EPA needs to be updated, with equipment, but we need to exercise all the laws that are available on the books already to stop whenever the production is increased normally at night. That's when they do that in most cases. But when we hold the shareholders accountable, I think that's a first step. And I'm going to take that step and go to Tokyo and address Denka shareholders in Japanese.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendoza. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, first I would say if I wasn't sure if they were referring to within said plants or the communities surrounding the plant. But in order to answer that, I think it would be a two-pronged thing. First, send OSHA in to make sure that to narrow down the causes of these pollutants, and what if it's in the company, they find them. Then after OSHA gets in there and finds out what's causing this pollutions and stuff of that nature, have the EPA come in and do their assessments and find them or shut them down until they can clean up their act, and then hold those responsible for dumping pollutants and toxins into the water and emitting stuff into the air, which causes these cancers, whether it's within the plant or within the community surrounding the plant. And then from there, we go address medical issues that these people find themselves in with high medical bills as a result of those things. But that's it.
Chambers.
Next, thank you, candidates, for your answer. The next question.
Wait. I don't think Mr. Chambers had an opportunity.
Right, we got to hear from Gary Chambers.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chambers, please. I'm sorry.
Just will say that I support increased regulations and funding with the EPA. I think what Ms. Stibe touched on spoke directly to the issue. I think she and I align the most because we're the only two candidates that register on the polling in this race right now. And so we've had a lot of time to talk about these issues and how we get to work to actually help the people. I have a 6:30 cutoff, guys. I just want to say that before the next set of questions goes out.
Well, okay, Valerie, does anyone have a specific question that?
Yeah, we only have two more. We have two more.
Okay.
We have two more.
And we're done at 6:32, Gary, so you're fine. We got two more questions, and let's make it quick.
Okay, the next question by Mr. Alexander. Are there any candidates here that would like to affirm their support for strict term limits in Congress? Would love to hear from Mr. Gary thoughts on this.
I agree with term limits. I don't know what those term limits are. I think that's the discussion that should be had with the 2-year terms in the House and 6-year terms in the Senate. I could support something like 2 terms in the Senate, 4 terms in the House or something like that, or 8 terms in the House. I'm not sure. I think that there needs to be a realistic time when folks go home, though. That folks shouldn't be there forever.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, I support term limits because it's you like Mr.
Give us
Chambers.
a yes or no answer, please. Just a
No,
yes.
I mean, yes. I support term limits.
Okay, we're moving
Okay.
right along. We only got 3 minutes left.
Okay, Dr. Mendoza. Support term limits?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Stibe,
Absolutely.
Mr. John.
You hear?
Okay. Next question.
Last question.
Okay, now we have from Mr. Ben and CC, if it's possible, after Mr. Ben, this will be the last question. Will you, of course, you're gonna give the candidates time to make their last remarks. So I'm gonna ask you, since Mr. Gary, Mr. Chambers, Mr. Gary Chambers, the only one said that he have to exit. Can Mr. Chambers be the first one?
Sure.
Good, I agree.
I don't have any problem with that.
Everybody's gonna have 30 seconds because now we got.
Okay,
2
Mr.
minutes
Ben,
left.
Mr. Ben.
With Mr. Ben. Oh, that must be him.
Actually, you can pass on to the next question because two of my questions on the EPA situation in St. James and other parishes, and also the terminals have been answered. So you can pass on to another one and give them a chance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ben. Now I'm gonna turn it back over to Miss Cece.
Okay, so now it's time to, I want to thank all of the candidates who came. And we appreciate you guys. Too bad didn't come. But at any rate, we're thankful having you guys. Now, I'd like you to each take 30 seconds, tell us your number and your website. And we're going to start with Mr. Chambers.
Number 2 on your ballot, chambersforlouisiana.com. Thank you to all of you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. 30 days are all we have until Election Day. I'm the lead polling Democrat. We don't have time to waste. Kennedy is polling at 51. If you join us, if you knock doors, tell folks in your neighborhood to vote for number 2 on your ballot. We are going to put him in a runoff. And if we get to a runoff, we're going to win in December. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Gary.
Rodriguez.
Who? Is that me? I
Yes,
didn't
sir.
catch it. Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez is number 10 on the ballot. My website is Salvador P. Rodriguez for U.S. Senate 2022, and that's the number 4, not FOR, U.S. Senate 2022. That's it. Time is serious. Everybody has to show up, use their voice. Otherwise, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, you'll fall for anything. That's again, number 4. I mean, number 10, excuse me.
Number 10 with Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, Ms. Stibe.
Yes, again, thank y'all again for having me today. My name is Sarita Stibe. My website is saritastibe.com. All social media handles are support Sarita, so please come and follow me. I am number 12 on the ballot, and I can give you my word standing here today that if I am elected to the U.S. Senate, I am bringing all community with me to provide access to spaces that we have traditionally been locked out of. You have my word on that. That is how I live my life, and that is what I've done up until this point, and will continue to do it. I am the only woman on the ballot. And Louisiana has never elected a Black woman to a statewide office in the history of this state. And it is time for that to change. So again, I appreciate everybody's time. Number 12 on the ballot, our social media handles are support Sarita, and everybody have an amazing rest of your night.
Okay, Dr. Mendoza.
Dr. Vinny Mendoza, number 8 on the ballot. This election is about you. You need to vote for the future, and you need to consider that the only way to stop inflation and recession is by taking control of the U.S. Senate, and that is by sending a Democrat to the U.S. Senate. So please vote number 8, VinnyMendoza.com. Thanks.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. John.
He already did.
Okay. All right. He left. Okay, well, Valerie, take it.
Okay, do we have any other candidate that's running in another position? Would you like to speak at this time? No. If anyone have any announcement, please put your announcement in the chat, because it's time for Just Beyond to say good night.
Well, I just want to say,
Belinda, I'm gonna pass the mic over to you. It's time for Just Beyond to say good night. We really appreciate everyone to come to this forum tonight for you to listen to the candidates that's running for the U.S. Senate. We thank you. Now I want to pass it over to Miss Belinda Parker. Thank you.
well, again, someone needs to mute real quick. You know, I got a real brief announcement. What I would like for everyone to do is really follow these candidates on Facebook. You know, I'm hoping that we can put something out on Louisiana United International in regards to all of our candidates. You know, I just want to say thank you very much for everybody that took the time out to join us tonight, and spread the word that this is a very, very important election. People need to get involved and go to the polls and vote. It's time for a change. So thank you so much. And I would like to thank Ms. Cece and Valerie for hosting this forum tonight, and great job well done. Good night, everybody.
Okay, we gonna close out with Richard. Richard, can you lead us out in a prayer, please? We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you. Almighty Lord, creator, giver of life, thank you for creating us and the creatures of this world, our planet Earth. Help us to learn to love and respect as you give us life and to share it with all. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Good
And
night,
thank-
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Justice and beyond.